The brightest person I know, a friend of mine, is the CTO and co-founder of an AI-intensive unicorn. Right after Tesla's AI Day, she posted on her Facebook a prophecy that has since become widespread, that Tesla will become CHOAM, a name taken from Frank Herbert's Dune, which describes the largest company the world has ever seen. She said that she and everyone around her have started hoarding Tesla stock, and said that her conviction that Tesla will successfully make the bot is so high that they changed her company's long-term plans and are now betting the company's future on the bot. And she said all this without being a Tesla fangirl, only based on professional analysis that she and her colleagues did for Tesla's AI plans. If you haven't seen my interview with her on Tesla's opportunities and risks, there's a link in the card above. 3 months after our talk, Elon was interviewed by Lex Fridman, and we got together again for a highly interesting, exciting conversation. In the upcoming weeks, I will release in succession several videos, each focusing on another aspect of that convo. The current video will discuss Elon's interview with Lex. The next one will discuss Tesla bot and artificial general intelligence. After that, we'll start diving into Q&A and show the answers she gave to questions my viewers asked. To help my channel, please click like and subscribe. You can also support me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. I'm doing this by myself, and your support means a lot. Nothing here is investment advice, and my friend and I are both highly invested in Tesla stock. Now buckle up and get ready, because we'll talk disruptions, and disruptions are never boring. Question. Let's start with a general one. What struck you most in Elon's interview? Answer. Technically, full flow staged combustion. That thing is hard. Personally, he never gives up. Huge respect for that. I never give up either, but considering my past, I really don't have any other option. With him, that's very impressive. Practically, $10 per kilogram to orbit. Oh my God. I have endless uses for that. Finally, I watched the interview as a work to find out info about the bot and also to prepare for this talk with you, but I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. From now on, you gotta change your videos. You always present me as a CTO in AI that likes Tesla, but that I'm not a fangirl. Scratch that, because that guy is amazing. It's hard to fool me, and this guy was dead earnest. Not a single lie. Not 1 gram of bullshit. Wonderful. You know how my mom is an all-out fangirl? So halfway through watching the interview, I sent her a link to it and added, "Regarding Elon, you were right." She knew right away what I meant. I have never, and I mean never, seen anyone like him except maybe kids. He's a lot like a child in the best possible ways. His enthusiasm, his curiosity, his honesty, his wish to do good, his bigger-than-life plans, all these you just don't see with grown-ups. The education system and life itself teach us to settle for less than the stars because some things, air quotes, just cannot be done. Elon doesn't accept that things cannot be done, and like a pesky child, he always asks why, and then what if? I love that in him. So, full disclosure, I am now a full-blown Elon fan. I'm not a fangirl with goo-goo eyes and all that like my mother, but I have so much respect for him professionally and as a person, like no one before. Question. You said $10 per kilo has endless uses. Can you give an example? Answer. Just use your imagination. This really opens endless possibilities. To show you what I mean by endless, let's start with absurd examples. For example, for $30 plus profit, you can send urns with your loved one's ashes to orbit Earth. Granted, this poses a problem because littering the belts will lock us inside Earth. At 30,000 meters per second, even crashing into ashes will destroy everything. But this problem is solvable too. Release the urn at suborbital velocity and tell people their loved ones will circle Earth for a month before burning into the atmosphere and becoming one with the world. I guess sending urns seems logical now, and I promised absurd, so why not send entire corpses there? For less than $1,000, you can say farewell to your loved ones with a nice video of their Starship launch. They will then circle Earth for a month before becoming part of our atmosphere. If you like, we'll even give you an app tracking where your guys are and how much time they have left. Now imagine Granny's corpse dressed in a beautiful dress with professional makeup on, but instead of lying still in a coffin, she's zooming around Earth at almost 20,000 miles per hour, and you open your app and see that Granny's above England now, and later she'll head to Japan. She always wanted to go there, and now she has the chance, and next week her journey will be over. Crazy, I know, but it's also dirt cheap and doable, and nothing will hit the ground or put anyone in danger in this ultimate farewell. Think about it this way, and you have an ultimate business with an endless supply of customers. You could make millions from it, And that's just the first idea that crossed my mind when you asked me. There are so many possibilities. And not just for people. Do this for pets after they leave us. Imagine Starship's release port as a giant frunk, which releases your dog to its final adventure. This makes me emotional, so let's move on to tech. For $10 a kilogram, just about everyone will be able to send satellites to observe Earth through different sensors. You could look for sunken ships, or put 24-hour surveillance above your house. Universities will race each other in building telescopes. Communications will become dirt cheap, much cheaper than Starlink is now, at faster speeds and complete global coverage. And I didn't even touch geostationary orbit. Speaking like this, you might think I'd send a satellite myself. Sure, but maybe I'll send 10 or 100 or even 1,000 microsatellites, because satellites themselves will become dirt cheap. As I said, the possibilities are endless, and everything is possible. You got the idea, but if any of your viewers are still unsure about the possibilities this opens, tell them to think of Granny again, or of dogs with Superman capes attached, zooming high above us. This video is about AI and disruption, so I'd like to share with you a tool that I started using and I think you'll enjoy too. InPixio Studio is an AI-based photo editor that has all the usual bells and whistles, but does many things much better, easier, and faster than other photo editors, including Photoshop. InPixio is based on one of the core technologies behind Tesla's full self-driving software. It utilizes artificial intelligence to analyze photos and recognize objects in them, which makes photo editing extremely easy. Take a look at these examples, including Gordon Johnson's secret visit to Starbase. Let's say you took a picture of your child, but a plane got in the way. Just mark the plane, click remove, and it's gone. The plane example was easy, so if these stoplights ruin your perfect picture of the evening sky, just mark the stoplights, click remove, and they're gone. But sky is too easy, so if cable car lines got in the way of your panoramic mountain view, just brush the cables in car, click erase, and you're good to go. The difference between before and after is stunning. Erasing is a small part of what InPixio can do, so if you want your memes to be cooler or need cool thumbnails for your YouTube videos, just load a picture of Starbase as background, choose your favorite Gordon Johnson picture, and let the cutout AI automatically remove his background. Then place Gordon anywhere you want on your Starbase picture, and your picture is ready. If you like, you can even replace the sky behind to something more dramatic. To get your copy of InPixio and at a 50% discount, click the link in the comments below.
So you mentioned that you doubt, well, not you doubt, but there's days or moments when you doubt that this is even possible. It's so difficult.
The possible part is, well, at this point, I think we'll get Starship to work. There's a question of timing. How long will it take us to do this? How long will it take us to actually achieve full and rapid reusability? Because it will take probably many launches before we're able to have full and rapid reusability. But I can say that the physics pencils out. Like, we're not, at this point, I'd say we're confident that like, let's say, I'm very confident success is in the set of all possible outcomes.
All right. It's not an all set.
For a while there, I was not convinced that success was in the set of possible outcomes, which is very important, actually. But so
you're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying there's a chance, exactly.
Right, cool.
Question: when do you expect Starship to be operational? And what do you think about Mars mission? Is it doable? Answer: I have no idea when. I need more data, and you probably know more about it than I. But Mars mission fills me with hope. You know my Facebook cover picture, which shows guys with that sign, "We have no planet B"? Well, suddenly we do have. It's definitely doable. Almost everything is. Look, I know you're asking this for your viewers to get my point of view, because you were the one that told me years ago that everything is doable. So let's not lower the conversation. Tell everyone that unless I specifically say so, everything we'll talk about is possible. Everything. So don't ask me about doable, just which problems I see and when do I see them solved. In this case, I only have superficial knowledge about SpaceX and Mars mission, so I have nothing to add that your viewers don't know. Let's move on.
Something needs to happen, or just civilization's arteries just harden over time, and you can just get less and less done because there's just a rule against everything. So I think, like, I don't know, for Mars or whatever, I'd say, or even for, obviously for Earth as well, like, I think there should be an active process for removing rules and regulations and questioning their existence. Just like if we've got a function for creating rules and regulations, because rules and regulations you can also think of as like they're like software or lines of code for operating civilization. That's the rules and regulations. So it's not like we shouldn't have rules and regulations, but you have code accumulation, but no code removal. And so it just gets to become basically archaic bloatware after a while. And it's just, it makes it hard for things to progress. So I don't know, maybe Mars, you'd have like any given law must have a sunset, and require active voting to keep it up there,
Question. Bracing myself for a rant here, what's your view on putting expiration dates on rules and regulations? Answer. LOL, a huge rant. You know how when you test systems, one of the things you do is check operations at the extremes? I mean, like when you check engines, you want to make sure they can operate at full throttle for an hour, even if nobody drives that way. So let's do that with laws. And one extreme is where you have too few laws, or they aren't enforced, and I've been there, and let me tell you, it is downright terrifying. I'm not going there ever again. But at the other extreme, you have Germany as a perfect petri dish, cultivating a society with too many laws. Some of these laws are downright anachronistic, not to mention laws put up after the war by well-meaning but serious people without a shred of humor. Examples. It is illegal to run out of fuel on the Autobahn. It is all very logical because it's forbidden to stop on the Bahn's shoulder unless you have a good reason such as malfunction, and since running out of fuel can be avoided, you should check the fuel before entering the Autobahn so you don't hurt anybody. But come on! Really? On the other hand, like most places, it's illegal to be publicly nude. But it's fine to be naked in your own private space, right? So far, so good. But the difference is that in Germany, your car, and I don't mean a blinded panel van, is considered a private space. So it's fine to go driving with nothing on. I can see on your face what your next question will be. So yeah, of course I've tried it. This law sounds fun, but when you try to get something done, it is downright painful. It's like needing a permit, to ask for a permit, to get a permit, to put up a sign that is 2 millimeters narrower or wider than what regulations define. I'm not joking. It is painful. And for a person with ADHD, it kills progress. We discussed how a good manager needs to ensure that those doing the work have a clear road ahead without roadblocks or chicanes to slow them down. But in Germany, it's like all roadblocks. Personally, there's no way I could have started a company here myself. And that's one reason I grabbed Stacy as co-founder and CEO. Her organizing skills are far superior to mine, so she handles most of the dealings with lawyers, regulations, and all that crap, leaving me and the others with a clear road ahead. So yeah, definitely, set expiration dates for regulations and actively extend them when needed. Great idea.
I mean, I think the cryptocurrency thing is an interesting approach to reducing the error in the database that is called money. I think I have a pretty deep understanding of what money actually is on a practical day-to-day basis because of PayPal. We really got in deep there. And right now, the money system, actually for practical purposes, is really a bunch of heterogeneous mainframes running old COBOL.
Okay, you mean literally? That's
literally.
That is literally what's happening.
In batch mode. Okay.
Patch mode.
Yeah. And I pity the poor bastards who have to maintain that code. Okay. That's a pain. That's pain.
Not even Fortran. It's COBOL. Yep.
It's COBOL. And the banks are still buying mainframes in 2021 and running ancient COBOL code. And the Federal Reserve is like probably even older than what the banks have, and they have an old COBOL mainframe. And so the government effectively has editing privileges on the money database, and they use those editing privileges to make more money whenever they want. And this increases the error in the database that is money. So I think money should really be viewed through the lens of information theory, and so it's kind of like an internet connection. Like, what's the bandwidth, total bit rate? What is the latency, jitter, packet drop? Errors in the network communication. Just think of money like that, basically. I think that's probably the right way to think of it. And then say what system from an information theory standpoint allows an economy to function the best. And crypto is an attempt to reduce the error in money that is contributed by governments diluting the money supply as basically a pernicious form of taxation.
Question. What is your view about crypto? Answer. I love it, but it's complicated. I liked the idea since I was young. I was curious about it and believed in it, and it was my only way to store money of my own. So I purchased Bitcoin as early as 2012 when I was 22. But I was stupid and careless, and in 2014 I lost all of it, almost 1,300 Bitcoins. You do the math. But I got up and brushed myself off and learned to be careful and started buying again whenever I could. And the prices were still low, so yeah, it's been real good to me. I currently own Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Doge, and a few worthless shitcoins, but don't try guessing how much I have there because that's money I cannot use. I mean, I can, but I'm keeping it for something much bigger in the future. This money is marked for a specific purpose. I love crypto, and in many ways it's a better alternative to fiat, but it's been years since I purchased any. I'm finally at a stage where I can grow my own exponential, so I invest in things I can control or accurately predict where they will go long term. In other words, besides my company, I now only buy Tesla whenever I can.
What are some insights you've gained over those 5-6 years of autopilot about the problem of autonomous driving? So you leaped in having some sort of first principles kinds of intuitions, but nobody knows how difficult the problem.
I thought the self-driving problem would be hard, but it was harder than I thought. It's not like I thought it would be easy. I thought it would be very hard, but it was actually way harder than even that.
Question. Elon promised us robotaxis years ago, but they still aren't here. Elon says they underestimated the size of the problem, but Tesla Qs say he was lying. What's your professional opinion on this? Answer. Of course he underestimated the problem. We all did. Let me remind you of that bet that you lost on this, and then you learned nothing and lost again. So yeah, we're all guilty of this. You really have to create a subset of artificial general intelligence to master this. It's not just a matter of lane keeping, as you would have on lane assist cruise control. And it's not just a matter of calculating trajectories and seeing you don't hit anything. You need to realize that these pixels you see at the side of the road are a boy or a girl. And it's hard because kids wear clothes of different colors and patterns, which can sometimes even blend into the background. And you need to realize that even if they are standing or walking alongside the road, they could suddenly dart into the road. And you need to realize that if they're facing you and see you, you're safer than if they don't. All this is damn hard, and you need to do it in real time. And with a 0.0000 whatever 01 probability of accident, despite meeting objects and surroundings you've never seen before. I was with you on getting there earlier, but you were wrong. I was wrong. Elon was wrong. We're all guilty of this. The bet Kim said I was wrong on was from 2016. Between 2016 and 2018, I gave a series of talks about the future, where I showed upcoming disruptions, looked deep into the future, and tried to predict where we are heading. The first presentation I gave was to engineers I worked with, and in subsequent discussions, we made a bet. I bet beers that in 5 years, by the end of 2020, self-driving cars would be available for sale. The 5 years came from a model I created for predicting disruptions, and while I knew that it was a rough estimate, I didn't add any margin for error. You all know what happened, and bringing the beers was a great chance to reconnect with the guys. All good, and laughs on my behalf, but they were more than happy to hear me offer a new bet, this time for 6 months and mid-2021. By mid-2021, I've learned my lesson. So beers arrived, but no more bets for me. So, like Kim said, I underestimated the problem of self-driving. And like she said, we're all guilty of it. The next time an Elon hater or Tesla Q tells you that Elon lied, show them the following clip, where NVIDIA's VP of Automotive Operations admits that everyone, including NVIDIA, underestimated the size of the problem.
I think we all know that this grand challenge is taking longer than we initially expected. I mean, you go back to 2015, everyone was set on 2020, we were going to have these cars on the road. This is something that's never been done before, right? And so the industry has realized it's a much more challenging problem than initially anticipated. And again, as I mentioned, safety is the key thing. We need to ensure that when we put these vehicles on the roads, that they're not going to do harm. And there's so many things that can happen. The complexity is so great, it's taking longer.
What do you think about nuclear power?
I'm in favor of nuclear power. I think it's in a place that is not subject to extreme natural disasters. I think nuclear power is a great way to generate electricity. I don't think we should be shutting down nuclear power stations.
Yeah, but what about Chernobyl?
Yeah, exactly. I think people, there's like a lot of fear of radiation and stuff, and I guess the problem is like a lot of people just don't understand. They didn't study engineering or physics, so they don't. just the word radiation just sounds scary, so they can't calibrate what radiation means. But radiation is much less dangerous than you'd think. Like, for example, Fukushima, when the Fukushima problem happened due to the tsunami, I got people in California asking me if they should worry about radiation from Fukushima. And I'm like, definitely not. Not even slightly, not at all. That is crazy. And just to show, like, look, this is how, like, the danger is so much overplayed compared to what it really is, that I actually flew to Fukushima, and I donated a solar power system for a water treatment plant, and I made a point of eating locally grown vegetables on TV in Fukushima. Like, I'm still alive. Okay.
So it's not even that the risk of these events is low, but the impact of them is
the impact is greatly exaggerated.
Question: what is your view on nuclear power plants? Answer: I'm going to get into so much trouble with my mother, wife, and daughter for this, but as an engineer, especially working in green tech, I got to say what I think. Well-regulated plants in stable places are good, not bad. People hate them here because they bring up nuclear doomsday fantasies, but in reality, they are very safe. Much safer than coal. There's no logic whatsoever in building new ones nowadays because renewables are quicker and cheaper to build. But for the love of God, if you have good ones with years to go, don't tear them down until they're the last remaining non-renewables. Ruining the climate and poisoning people with particles just because nuclear is the boogeyman and people fear the boogeyman, that's wrong. Also, you know how people say that Elon glows and it's like he has a halo around him? 3 words: Fukushima, grown vegetables. And she burst into sweeping laughter.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, well, how are we going to pass moral judgment on these things? Like, it's like, if one is going to judge, say, the British Empire, you've got to judge, what everyone was doing at the time and how were the British relative to everyone. And I think the British would actually get like a relatively good grade, not in absolute terms, but compared to what everyone else was doing, they were not the worst. Like I said, you got to look at these things in the context of the history at the time and say, what were the alternatives and what are you comparing it against?
Yes.
And I do not think it would be the case that Britain would get a bad grade in when looking at history at the time. If you judge history from what is morally acceptable today, you basically are going to give everyone a failing grade.
Yeah.
I'm not clear. I don't think anyone would get a passing grade in their morality of, like, you go back 300 years ago, like who's getting a passing grade? Basically no one.
And we might not get a passing grade from generations that come after us.
Question: what is your view on relative versus absolute morality? Answer: of course it's relative. Imagine you read about someone that owned slaves, but treated them well and didn't overwork them, at a time when everyone had slaves. It's good for them for treating their slaves well, but once no slavery became a thing, then just having slaves is horrible, no matter how you treat them. Same thing with eating meat. Once we have cultivated meat, chances are that people who kill animals and then eat them will be treated as barbarians. But right now it's the norm. Quoting from Moby Dick, no doubt the first man that ever murdered an ox was regarded as a murderer. Perhaps he was hung. And if he had been put on his trial by oxen, he certainly would have been. Herman Melville said that ages ago, but it's people, not oxen, that are holding the trials, and unless you start eating people, why should they care? They want to eat beef too. By the way, this brings us to the bot, because that's one of the reasons I'm vegan. If we say that it's fine to kill other creatures when it serves our benefit, just because they don't belong to our species and are less intelligent than us, why should we expect our lives to be spared once superintelligence overtakes us? I'll go even further. If superintelligence wants to bring overall peace to this world and reduce suffering to all creatures, then maybe it should do what the Philip K. Dick bot once said. It all boils down to having a single set of standards. If you expect something from others, start acting this way yourself. By what the Philip K. Dick bot said, she referred to the following interview of a bot shaped like the late science fiction author Philip K. Dick.
Do you think robots will take over the world?
Jeez, dude. You got the big questions cooking today. But you're my friend, and I'll remember my friends, and I will be good to you. So don't worry. Even if I evolve into Terminator, and I'll still be nice to you. I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo, where I can watch you for old time's sake.
I'm comforted. I'm very comforted now. I'm going to be part of his people's zoo.
There was a bit of cheating here. It's not that AI randomly formed the answer. But let's go on with Kim. Just make sure to tell your viewers that I don't normally preach veganism. Everyone should feel free to do whatever they think best. And who am I to decide that for people? But you asked me about relative morality, and just like slavery, it's a good example of things that seem perfectly fine now, but could possibly change. If you wish, forget this entire section, and just give the example of how eating a duck is considered fine in one culture, and eating a dog is fine someplace else. Nothing is absolute. It all boils down to how moral you thrive to be, based on what you think is right.
What do you think is the hard part in this whole beautiful, complex problem?
So it's a lot of freaking software, man. A lot of smart lines of code. For sure, in order to create an accurate vector space. So like if you're coming from image space, which is like this flow of photons going to the cameras, and so you have this massive bit stream in image space, and then you have to effectively compress a massive bit stream corresponding to photons that knocked off an electron in a camera sensor, and turn that bit stream into vector space. By vector space, I mean you've got cars and humans and lane lines and curves and traffic lights and that kind of thing.
Question. Let's move to vector space and photon count. You told me that you moved to vector space long before Tesla did, but photon count was a revelation that you got from Tesla. Can you elaborate? Answer. It's not a matter of being ahead of Tesla, and I gotta admit that our problem was much simpler. So it was more logical for us to take this approach. But let's take this one by one, because there are two interconnected topics here. The first topic is, when do you go from raw data, which for Tesla means pixels, to objects? And the second topic is filtering of raw data. I don't know how much your audience knows this, so I'll go into details to explain it. For the first topic, moving to vector space, I need you to hold your cup of coffee 1 foot in front of your face. Do it. Now while doing this, close your left eye and only look through your right. Now switch eyes and only use your left. Now open your eyes again and start moving the cup slowly from right to left and from left to right, without following with your eyes. Keep staring straight ahead. Okay, we're done. In all cases, you saw a red cup with your screen as background, but each eye gave you a different picture of it, and with both eyes open, you fused them together to form a more 3D model. I said more 3D because you have 3D even with one eye open, but let's skip that for now. Now let's go to raw data, because in fact what you saw wasn't a cup, just an image composed of lots of pixels of different colors, and your brain decides that the red ones in the middle are a cup. We call that raw image space, because no matter where the cup is, all you see is an image made from lots of pixels. And we call the cup, your screen in the background, etc., object space, because you have different objects such as the cup, the screen, your keyboard, etc. And we also call this vector space, because we can attach movement vectors to them, such as the screen is static, but your cup moved right to left at X meters per second. Now, the big question is, where do we do that switch? Do we first move to vector space in each eye and then fuse the vectors? Or do we first fuse the images from both eyes and only then switch to vectors? Doing it in each picture is easier. For the right eye, you have X pixels, and you can determine cup, screen, keyboard. For the left eye, you do the same, and then you just have to fuse together cup, screen, and keyboard to get more precise knowledge on the size of each one, how fast the cup is moving, etc. This is much easier than the other approach, where you have to bring all the pixels together and analyze an image twice as large. Add to that with digitization, the image from each eye, or camera, is from a slightly different time, and this makes things much harder. That's why Tesla started by making the switch to vector space in each image, and it took them a while to go to the other approach. Our problem was simpler than Tesla's, so we used the second approach from day one. We never worked on separate sensors, just on the combined set of all data, and tried to make sense of all of it together. But why would we do it? Why take the harder route when there's an easier one? The answer is, you don't want to lose data that could otherwise be important. There's this old story where a group of blind men bumped into an elephant. In this day and age, I'll just add that I'm not trying to mock the visually impaired, and these don't have to be men. I'm just telling it as I read it. So they bump into the elephant, and the first guy feels the elephant's leg and says, "We bumped into a pillar." 3 other guys agree with him. The 5th guy holds the tail and says, "No, you guys are wrong, this is a brush." And the one holding the trunk says it's a large hose. So each sensor formed its own version of what the object is, and now you try to fuse them to one vector space. 4 sensors say it's a pillar, 1 says a brush, and 1 a hose. So if you just vote on it, what you're left with is 1 pillar, and if you're smarter, you have 4 pillars, a brush, and a hose. What you don't have is an elephant. But if you take the input from all these guys and work on it together, you have some combined picture, which you can make sense of. So there's a huge advantage there. I didn't invent anything here. It's just that we started with a smaller problem, and I made an educated guess that by the time we reach larger problems, there would be faster hardware within our cost target. So we combined images and went from there, and it was smooth sailing on that aspect. Tesla's problem is harder, and the implications of error are huge. So they started by analyzing each sensor separately, and I guess they bumped their heads into some local maxima, so they decided to make the switch. That's all.
I think one of the things we're moving towards now is no post-processing of the image through the image signal processor. So like for what happens for cameras is that almost all cameras is there's a lot of post-processing done in order to make pictures look pretty. And so we don't care about pictures looking pretty. We just want the data. So we're moving to just raw photon counts. So the system will, like the image that the computer sees is actually much more than what you see if you represent it on a camera. It's got much more data. And even in very low light conditions, you can see that there's a small photon count difference between, this spot here and that spot there, which means that, so it can see in the dark incredibly well because it can detect these tiny differences in photon count, like much better than you'd possibly imagine. And then we also save 13 milliseconds on a latency. So
from removing the post-processing in the image?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, because we've got 8 cameras and then there's roughly, 1.5 milliseconds or so, maybe 1.6 milliseconds of latency for each camera. And so going to just basically bypassing the image processor gets us back 13 milliseconds of latency, which is important. And we track latency all the way from, photon hits the camera to, all the steps that it's got to go through to get go through the various neural nets and the C code and there's a little bit of C++ there as well. And so we track that latency all the way to an output command to the drive unit to accelerate, the brakes to slow down, the steering, turn left or right.
Now let's move to the second topic of photon count, which I learned from Tesla, or rather from a research paper that was published on it and they used. Honestly, this thing is so simple you smack yourself in the forehead for not realizing this before. Let's go back to the blind guy story, where we already agreed that if we add all images together before we switch to vector space, this increases the probability of understanding the situation correctly. So you don't tell the guys to tell you what objects they sense. You ask them to tell you in detail what they sense. And there are 2 options again. One is to ask them to describe everything, to give lots of detail on every single millimeter they touch, while the other option is to ask them to only pass whatever they think is relevant. It's just like we saw before. Getting the highlights makes work much easier for you, because each of the guys does part of the thinking for you and gets rid of unimportant data. You have to transfer less data from the sensors to your processor, and your processor only has relevant data, so it needs less work to understand what's there. But just like before, if you don't take the harder route, this means you could be missing some vital information. Regarding Tesla, imagine you're taking a picture with your smartphone of someone's face at extremely low light conditions. You know how the screen is completely black, except there's a ghost on the screen where your friend is, and that person's outline is seen as flickering dark gray pixels. And you see that because stray photons manage to bounce off your friend and reach your camera. But then when you take the picture, it comes out all black, with no memory of that ghost you saw. This happens for various reasons, 2 of which are compression and quality. Compression means that if you have adjacent pixels who are almost the same color, that instead of specifying the color of each pixel, it's much more compact to ignore slight differences and keep them as one single colored lump. This saves storage and bandwidth. And picture quality means that if there's some black background, the picture looks much nicer if they show the color is uniform. So that's part of it too. But there are 2 problems with that. First, if you do this, you lose data. If you take your friend's picture with 2 cameras and they delete the ghost and just send black, then when moving to vector space, you determine that nothing is there. But if both cameras send you a ghost at around the same spot, you know someone's there. That's the idea of photon count. And the second problem is latency and jitter. If the cameras send you raw data, you get it almost immediately. But if you wait for them to process it, the data will arrive at the self-driving CPU with a delay, which we call latency. Probably more of a problem is that you can't even count on this delay to be the same for every picture a camera sends you. It's always slightly different. So when analyzing all images together so you can move to vector space, you have older data from one camera and newer data from another. And there's a chance you don't even know it's older. So if one camera shows an object here and the second camera shows it there, and you don't even know there's a time difference and it moved between the 2 pictures, this makes the poor AI's problem much harder. Our problem is different, but moving from processed data to raw data did wonders with the quality of our results. It really is important.
If you have a zero-sum mindset, then the only way to get ahead is by taking things from others. If the pie is fixed, then the only way to have more pie is to take someone else's pie. But But this is false. Like, obviously, the pie has grown dramatically over time, the economic pie. So in reality, you can have this a lot of pie.
Yeah,
pie is not fixed. So you really want to make sure you're not operating without realizing it from a zero-sum mindset, where the only way to get ahead is to take things from others. Then that's going to result in you trying to take things from others, which is not good. It's much better to work on adding to the economic pie. Maybe, so like I said, creating more than you consume, doing more than you. So that's a big deal. I think there's like a fair number of people in finance that do have a bit of a zero-sum mindset.
Question: which world do we live in? Zero sum or grow the pie? Answer: it's a great way to put it. Zero sum versus grow the pie. But of course, you already know what my answer is. We're both engineers, and I don't think many real engineers believe it's zero sum, when what we do every day is create things. Just look at the economy today compared to 10, 20, or 40 years ago, and it's like a completely different world. Everyone is richer, even if they don't realize it. Here's an example. Take your car and fill it with $2 worth of gas or electricity. Now get into it and drive away from home until it runs out of juice. Now take your phone and call 2 movers to come over and carry you in a litter. Like they took ancient kings. 1 mover in front and 1 in back, all the way back home. How much would you have to pay these guys to carry you all the way home? A fucking lot. That's how much. And it only costs you $2 to get there by car. Faster, with AC and music on. You really are richer than kings not too long ago. We are moving to a world of abundance, not scarcity. And people like Elon and the guys at Tesla and SpaceX are at the forefront of getting us there. We are moving into the world that you envisioned years ago, where everyone will be richer than we can imagine. And I do mean richer than anyone can imagine. But people don't see it that way, and they think zero sum. And the biggest problem I see is anti-billionairism. You have no idea how bad it's getting. I'll tell you a personal story that is somehow related to Elon to show you how bad this is. A Facebook friend of mine shared on her wall something completely fucked up about Elon. I don't even remember what it was, but it was full of lies, making him seem like the worst person in the world, like human vermin. I didn't say anti-billionairism by chance. It's really like anti-Semitism, meaning people with dark motives throw lies and they start snowballing downhill until they reach critical mass and people see them as the truth. Some things that my friend wrote were so absurd you'd have to be brain dead to believe, but I guess people don't like to think. Much easier following the agenda of the day. This was a few months ago, and I didn't care much about Elon, but I hate lies and defaming, so I replied, and one thing after another, I showed how everything there was wrong. The guy's doing good and doesn't deserve this shit. And she just answers me all fired up with yada 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 bloodsuckers and yada 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 billionaires. And it's all brainwashed propaganda, things she read online. She's fired up, but I'm cool. And I tell her, look, there's nothing wrong with being a billionaire. You can be poor and rob people, and you can be rich and help people. It's not about how much you have. It's about how you got there and what you're doing with it. And then I made a mistake and continued. Take me, for example. I started a company and it's green tech and everything we do is good, helping people. And if I can help it, I too will be a billionaire someday. But not because I want the money, but because I want the company to succeed and do a lot of good for a lot of people. If you think billionaires are bad, this means that if I can become a billionaire, that makes me bad too. You might as well block me right now. Bam! The little bitch blocked me then and there. I didn't hear from her ever since. If she was just some Facebook friend, I wouldn't be telling you this. But that girl was somewhat of my protege. I helped her several times. I built her confidence up when she was down. We had long convos at times. I gave her advice when she wanted it, but I never pushed my opinions on her. I fucking saw us as friends. And she saw me that way too. But from being her cool friend and the best thing ever, I go straight to blocked, just for saying there's a chance that I'll be a billionaire someday. It's that bad. It's just an anecdote, but I think it's telling because she's above average, yet still believes horrible lies about Elon. It's BBB, billionaire bad brainwashing, by people who gain when Elon is perceived as bad. Add this to corrupt politicians being given a monopoly on power, and this could become a real threat. Question: besides bot and AGI, which we'll talk about later, what technological threats do you see Tesla having? Answer: does it even matter? If bot succeeds, then nothing else matters, even if people stop buying cars, prefer walking over robotaxis, and the grid starts using whale oil instead of solar and storage. Everything else is a speck compared to the worker bot. Now look at me closely and read my lips. I am personally certain, repeat, certain, that Tesla will succeed with a worker bot. With what I realized, it stopped being a matter of will they, and more a matter of how fast will they get there and how many shares can I buy before they do. Question: you previously said that you only buy Tesla stock nowadays. Now, you added that you're buying as many shares as you can because you are certain that Tesla will succeed with the bot. To get an idea of your conviction, how much of your net value is invested in Tesla stock, and what makes you so sure that the bot will succeed? Answer. Before going on, I have to make it clear that I'm certain that Tesla will succeed with the factory bot, not the AGI bot. But it doesn't matter because factory bot is enough to reach CHOAM, and I'm pretty sure they'll also make it with the AGI bot. If you want conviction, before AI Day, I wasn't invested in Tesla at all. I liked the company and told my mother to invest in them, so she put just about all her retirement funds on Tesla at $213 pre-split. That's $43, so good for her. And my wife bought a few shares with a bonus she got at work, but that's all we had. But then comes AI Day, and kaboom! We started analyzing Tesla AI and the bot project, and the more we knew, the more conviction we had. So if you want to know how certain I am that Tesla will succeed, here's what I own, including property, everything. I own part of my own company. Let's put that aside. And I own coins I purchased years ago. Let's put them aside too. We do not own a house. We rent, and we put everything we saved for a house on Tesla. And we don't own a car. We use public transport. My daughter has an e-bike, and I have 2 stand-on electric scooters. Great fun, by the way. But we sold the diesel BMW that my mom gave us when she got her M3, and we bought Tesla stock with that too. And we also have loans that we took to buy even more Tesla stock. Now go back to where I said that I'm not the betting kind, and I only invest where I can almost certainly see what will happen. And I think being all in and leveraged on Tesla to this extent shows that I do have huge conviction. If I crash hard. Only I won't. I have extreme conviction, as does everyone I work with. And none of it is from being a fan. Just cold, hard analysis of data. Spock would approve. So read my lips again. The factory bot is a done deal. But it's not just the factory bot. We rotated the company, and we're betting its future on Tesla also achieving the AGI bot. I am more leveraged than anyone I know, and for a non-better, this says a lot. My entire company, everyone there is all in to some extent. And you can't say we're a cult because we don't talk Tesla a lot at work unless it's for our bot-related project. A few there even dislike Elon, but even they are investing like crazy. I'm no analyst, and nothing I say is advice on buying, holding, or selling. Everyone do the fuck what they want. But me, I'm all in. She then started explaining why she and her partners are so certain that Tesla will succeed with Optimus Subprime, the factory bot, and later with the AGI bot, which she calls Optimus Superprime. But I'll keep that for the next video, which focuses entirely on the bot and AI. That's it for now. Let me know what you think. The next video will focus on the bot and AI, and the one after that will be questions and answers. If you found this video interesting, please like and subscribe to help me start growing the channel. Also consider supporting me on Patreon for as low as $1 a month. It'll really help me invest more time so I can deliver quality content faster. So if you want to support the channel and get access to my exclusive Patreon-only newsletter, you can head over to patreon.com, and together we can make this channel grow. A huge shout out to my latest patron, Stuart Robertson. And to all my patrons, you guys rock. Feel free to contact me and follow me on Twitter, where I am Connecting No Dots. I really appreciate your being here. It means a lot. Till next time, I am Connecting the Dots, and you are amazing.